first thing you do when you get to the hood is wash the hood. You don't want a dirty hood. So we usually keep 70% ethanol around. Clean your work surface where you plan on being.
How many times do you have to really like remove everything and then clean the whole?
We did it whenever, because it had been unused for the last year, you know, since this time last year, so we did that just last week. But normally you don't unless you suspect contamination. If you have issues, then you definitely want to do a deep cleaning. And, you know, so I just pretty much clean where I'm going to be working. That's what I worry about the most. The hardest part about working in your hood is that you have to remember to keep... Thank you.
She needs trash.
Yeah. You have to remember to keep your work in here. It's very natural to pull it towards yourself because you want it close so you can see. But you do not want to work right here. This is where the air is flowing and you don't want to stick yourselves right in that airflow. So you have to be in here and try not to get in the habit of pulling too close to yourself. And these lab coats are really slippery and you always feel like you're falling off the chair. This is the vacuum hose. So it's connected and there's a foot pedal. So I just turn that on so it creates suction here. And that's how we'll aspirate the media. This is because this is so loud, and that's loud when this is off, but you can barely hear it. It's easy to forget it. So just make that like your check at the end of the day, that you turn off the pump. Because I've come in here from previous years, and there's someone left the pump on all weekend. I'm shocked it's still alive, so we don't want to overheat the pump. So make sure you check that when you leave. It's okay to have it on while you're working if you know you're going to use it again soon, but don't leave it on when you're gone. This is a flask or a canister of sterilized pasteur pipettes, and we use this to attach to the end of the hose here. And so it's kind of the little probe that goes into the cells that's been sterilized, and that's how we aspirate our media. I'm going to go ahead and wash off my media bottles a little bit. So even though you're trying to maintain sterility, you just have to be aware that nothing in here is completely sterile. The only way you're going to prevent contamination is by not touching anything when you go in and out of these fluids. The fluids should be sterile. If they weren't, you'll know it pretty quickly. Change my gloves. Some people will hose the gloves off with alcohol too. Maybe it helps, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I don't usually do it. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is work with the cells. We're going to passage them. So the first thing you have to do is take off the media. So if you'll remember the steps that I mentioned in lecture on passaging, you have to take off the media and then you need to rinse off the excess media, because then we're going to add trypsin, which will be the enzyme that dissolves the extracellular matrix and that. So probably what I want to do, I'm going to go ahead and get the trypsin. I've got a water bath. That's over there. So I've
Right there.
warmed trypsin. And the trypsin is, it comes in a bottle, and then I aliquot it into smaller units. And anything that goes in or out of the water bath, I always dry it off first, real well, and then wipe it really well with 70% ethanol. Because water baths are probably full of bacteria. Alright, and I'll need to, you notice you can see it settles. It's got kind of a darker pink on the bottom, so I'll have to make sure I mix that before I use it. I don't want to invert it just because you just don't want things touching lids if you can help it. Okay. So our trypsin's there, we got our PBS, that's sterile, we've got media, and we've got our cells, so I think we're ready to get going. I'm going to turn on my pump, and then over here I've got my pasture pipettes. So these are all sterilized in the autoclave, and when you take these out, you just want to try to touch one if you can help it, and just keep it on the very end. And when you pull it out, come straight out and try not to bump it on a whole lot of stuff. If you do touch it, like on the outside of the canister, or if you touch it on here, put it away. It's not good. You don't want to use it. Because these are glass, they go in the sharps container. Everything else just goes in regular biohazard. So you just stick that in there. And then I use one hand to open the bottle, and I know on the video they showed putting the lids down that way, but I prefer not to touch the edge of the lid that comes the closest to my cells, so I'm breaking that rule. Alright, you go straight in and you just go down to the corner and suck it right out of there. Anything around the edge. And then I cap it just loosely. And then I usually lift this up a little bit to kind of let it drain. And then pop it off of here. And then that goes in there. Alright, now we're ready for PBS. And I'm actually going to close this up while I'm doing that. I try not to leave that open, if I can help it. Okay, so PBS, we're going to need, I'll turn that off. We're going to need about 5 or 6 milliliters. That's about the volume we're using in media, so you need about the same amount. And so over here in the drawer we have serological pipettes. They are obviously graduated. Depending on which way you look at them, they either count down or they count up. So you just have to, turn it to what you want to look at. So 5 milliliters is up here, but it actually goes to 7 if you needed it for a little bit more. So I'm going to use it because it'll do 6. Over here is our automatic pipetter. And these, they've got the little thing where you can peel them, but that's the shortcut right there. And as long as you don't touch it, that's the best way to do it. So you put it on here, you keep it in the bag while you're turning it where you want it. I really like the bigger numbers, even though they're upside down. I can remember what I'm doing. That was a bad shot. Paper trash, put it in the paper trash. You don't need to put that in the biohazard. Okay. The up button sucks it up. Take it to about 6. And then when I put this in, I'm going to try not to squirt it where my cells are, because I don't want to knock them off just yet. So I kind of angle it where they're not going to get splashed. And then I rock it a little bit back and forth. And this is just to help pick up that residual media. This also helps get rid of some of the dead cells that are that we really don't want to keep around. We want to make sure they're getting sucked out too. So you rock it back and forth, and you don't want to leave it in PBS a whole long time, because just the change in pH and stuff like that, it will start to cause the cells to ball up. So you don't want them to come off until you can really trypsinize them, but short periods of time are okay. Okay, so that was enough of a rinse. I'm going to get another pasture pipette. Now I'm going to just go straight in, aspirate out the media, or out the PBS. Alright. You also don't ever want to leave them sit and dry for any length of time. You know, a minute or two is probably as long as you want to push it. Alright, the next step is the trypsin. And I need to look at my notes. I think I've only been putting in about a half a milliliter of trypsin. Half a mil to a milliliter. You need enough trypsin just to cover the surface of the cells. They don't need to be under a whole lot of water. So I have in my notes, I did a milliliter last time. So I'll go ahead and do that. Got the little bitty 1 mil serological pipette. These you have to be very careful because you will suck liquid into them very quickly. Notice the pipette has speed settings on it, medium, fast. I keep it on slow for the smaller pipettes, but when you do like a big 25 mil pipette, you can put it on fast. If you ever need another hand when you're in this position, you've already taken your pipette out, you can prop it right here, and as long as it's not touching anything else, it'll be okay for a minute. So there's always that time where you suddenly realize you need your other hand. Back to you. Okay, I'm going to carefully pipette up and down to mix this. And you try not to make a lot of bubbles. You never want bubbles in cell culture because bubbles will irritate your cells. So you try not to foam up things too bad. Okay, now I'm going to take a milliliter. And the volumes in this sort of thing, they're not, you know, really, really picky down to the microliter kind of volumes. So you don't have to stress about that. Alright, this time I'm going to actually pipette right onto my cells. And it is not very much, it's just a really thin layer. So what you do is you just rock it back and forth, and you can kind of lift it up, and after a minute or two, sometimes if you've got a lot of cells on there, you'll be able to start seeing them slough off. Usually what you've got to do is incubate this for about 5 minutes at 37 degrees. So I'm going to do the second one real quick, and then we'll put them both in the incubator and let them sit for a minute. I'm going to change my gloves because I'm now changing cell lines. Now it's HK's turn, so doing the same thing again with these cells.
Alright, we'll pause for intermission then.